One issue when living in the Pacific Northwest is when the sun comes out, you got to figure out what am I going to do when. So you kind of have to schedule things. What I did this week was I decided to mow the lawn before heading up to the boat so I could do a little bit of work on it. We'd noticed this odor of diesel coming from the aft cabin, so I decided since it was a beautiful day to pick up a new fuel sending unit because we'd noticed also that the fuel gauge wasn't working on the pedestal. And then I headed up to the boat hoping to find out what was causing the odor and then replace that fuel sending unit if at all possible. It took me about 90 minutes to get up to Anacortes where our boat is moored. Once I arrived, one of the first things I typically do is check out the boat, make sure that it looks okay as it sits in the moorings, make sure the lines are okay, make sure that the power is plugged in. In this case, we were about to take the Jenny and put it back up, probably within the next couple of days. Today, basically, I wanted to make sure I checked out that diesel leak. The furling drum is all adjusted and ready to go, as is the furling lead. So next time up we put up the Jenny. The boat's been washed enough that we can start sailing. Cannot wait for that. Sweet. We're basically all ready to go. Outboard was mounted, barbecue installed. We're essentially ready to go. Of course, I'm hoping the barbecue is level. We can always level it later if we need to. Okay, so what we're looking at in here is the aft cabin. We've removed that panel. It just has 3 screws in the bottom, slides to the top. After that's removed, you then can remove the panel with the gas line in it, the gas tank rather. Now here you can see we checked for fluid. There was a little feel at the bottom. We found where it's coming from, which is the return hose, or excuse me, the fuel sending unit. So here's everything back here. And by the way, when you do that aft panel, 3 more screws. You do not have to undo the trim pieces there. You can see that the trim piece can still stay there. You do have to do the aft panel first, but with that little drill, it just takes a second. So we've checked everything, double checked, triple checked. We're dry as a bone in there. I'll pull those things out before I seal it. Now I'm going to go topside and show you that stuff. Well, it's always something. Anyway, I was unable to ultimately pull the fuel tank out. I'll kind of give you a picture of what that looks like in a second here. So I got out a Dremel tool and a vacuum and actually cut a hole through the inside of the lazarette. As you can see here, the fuel tank itself, especially with 25 gallons of fuel in it, was simply too heavy and too bulky to move out of position where it was. So instead, I drilled a hole, as you can see, through the lazarette, picked up a Bexon plate, and installed the Bexon plate. And in this way, I was able to directly access the fuel sending unit. This, by the way, is our fuel sending unit. Excuse me, that's our fuel sending unit in here. See if we can get you to see it down there. Okay. Sending unit is here. Oops, there it is. And there's the arm on it. This is the actual fuel tank, and there's you can actually see the fuel in there. I've got to shave down one of those screws. You can see it maybe right there, the one to the far right of the screen there. It needs to be shaved down. This is where the fuel was leaking when it was overfilled, so we're going to clean that out. It only took a few hours to swap out the faulty fuel sending unit and make sure I had a good gasket there with the fuel tank, confirm that there was no leaking and everything was watertight. I should say diesel tight. Sealed up the boat, made sure it was ready to go so that we could take off in a few more days and take a nice long week up in the islands. Trip home, again, takes maybe only 90 minutes, maybe a little bit less, following some back roads. And it was a beautiful day to have had some successful work on the boat. This is our first video where we've actually shown any maintenance or repairs on the boat. We probably won't do many of these, but I can think of at least one more that we might go ahead and show that's more of a maintenance effort. Mainly what we want to do is keep showing us enjoying the boat, visiting the islands, and hopefully we'll get more onto the islands and maybe see some of the sights that a lot of people don't see unless they have a boat to get onto the islands. The lawn's looking good.